Hey everyone, welcome to SPED 757 Reading Methods. I'm very glad to have you in the course, and I look forward to working with you this semester. This course follows a consistent weekly structure. New modules will be released on a regular schedule and will include readings, videos, and weekly tasks. I'll always embed the async session into the syllabi as well as on our online platform so that they're super easy for you to find. All assignments are due 6 days after the module is released, so you should have ample time to complete each module at your own pace. Submitting work early is always welcome. To get started, you're going to want to make sure that you have your School of Education Gmail account set up. I have directions for that on our online platform. And of course, you'll join our classroom, purchase the required textbooks, and if you complete all these steps, you'll be off to an excellent start. Before we begin, I want to briefly introduce myself. My name is Jennifer Klein. I'm a lecturer in special education and learning disabilities here at Hunter College. You can find my contact information on the syllabi. And I have office hours available to you. There's a link to schedule appointments if you ever want to chat. A little bit about me. I began my teaching career in Brooklyn many, many years ago, and I've worked across New York and New Jersey in a wide range of roles. In grad school, I was the recipient of a fellowship that allowed me to focus on researching and implementing effective literacy intervention strategies for struggling readers and writers. So I have had a passion for serving students with dyslexia and other reading and writing needs ever since. I've supervised grad students in literacy at Columbia University's Dean Hope Center for Educational and Psychological Services. And I've also taught educational psychology at William Patterson in New Jersey, where I live. I've taught full-time at Hunter for a long time now, since 2010, and I currently serve as the program leader for the Learning Disabilities Dual Cert program. And in this role, I teach and coordinate our courses on reading and writing methods. I advise some of you, I'm sure, and I oversee program logistics. I also coordinate the Hunter College Learning Lab, which is an after-school clinical tutoring program serving kids with learning disabilities. At the state level, I've served on the New York State Education Department Dyslexia and Dysgraphia Task Force. If you could just take a moment to pause, read carefully, and annotate our syllabi, you'll have opportunity to ask questions as part of your online post for the session. I want to give you some time to go ahead and do that now. Thanks for taking the time to read and annotate the syllabi, and I look forward to reviewing your questions online. Let's dive into the content. Let's start with a scenario. You wake up in the morning and you read the New York Times over coffee. The first article you read is about border security. You finish the article, move on with your morning, and you don't think too much about it. Later, your significant other, your roommate, maybe your kiddo wakes up and asks, "What was that article about?" You pause and realize you can't really remember, and you struggle to explain the main idea or any key details. Why does that happen? Let's take a moment to pause and write down what you think influences your ability to remember what you read. Go ahead and do that. Pause and just jot down some notes. So, why do we sometimes struggle to remember what we read? This example highlights a critical idea, which is that comprehension is not passive. And that's actually why I asked you to pause and write down some notes. As educators, we always want to be mindful of supporting our students in engaging with content actively. Comprehension is highly interactive and deeply personal. So, meaning is not simply absorbed. We can't be passive listeners or passive readers. Meaning is constructed through the interaction between the reader or the listener, text or the presentation, the purpose for reading, and the social and the cultural context in which the reading occurs. And this is true for all texts. Motivation also plays a major role. So if you imagine that the article I highlighted in the example wasn't about border security, but about student loan forgiveness, let's ask ourselves honestly, would you be more likely to pay attention, more likely to remember key points, more likely to explain it clearly to someone else? When a topic feels relevant or personally meaningful, comprehension and memory improve. Motivation drives engagement, and engagement drives comprehension. Skilled readers also use cognitive strategies, and these strategies are often invisible, but they matter enormously. So, examples of cognitive strategies might include self-questioning. What is this mostly about? Why does this matter? What's confusing me? Or relating and connecting. So, linking new information to prior knowledge, experiences, or other texts. Simplifying complex information. This might look like breaking unfamiliar or dense content into manageable chunks. For example, think of when you're doing a fire safety course. You might have a memory strategy of stop, drop, and roll because it makes a complex safety procedure easy to remember. So we're always thinking about how we can chunk information for ourselves and for our students. Imagery, creating mental pictures to support understanding. Mnemonics, like memory aids like PEMDAS in math. Knowledge of genre or text structure, so understanding how news articles, arguments, narratives, or informational texts are typically organized helps readers know what to pay attention to. Comprehension is also supported by before, during, and after reading strategies. Before reading, we want to encourage ourselves and our students when we're teaching to activate background knowledge, preview, and set a purpose for reading. What are my goals reading this passage? What are my goals listening to this presentation? That will help absorb more information and retain it. During reading, we can monitor our own understanding, ask questions, clarify, and visualize. The key here is we want to be active using multiple modalities. And after reading, we can summarize, discuss, reflect, and apply new information. So really, the key takeaway is this. Comprehension is active, strategic, it's motivated, it's contextual. When any of these pieces are missing, understanding and memory suffers. But of course, comprehension is also dependent in reading on the foundational skills required to read effectively. So it's really important that we know what a student's foundational skills are before we dive into comprehension instruction, because sometimes when comprehension is suffering, it's because a student is lacking in basic skills that require support and direct instruction. So let's talk about those basic skills. There are technical components of the reading process that we really need to understand in order to teach reading effectively. And so we'll get into each with some depth throughout the semester. They include phonemic awareness, decoding, fluency, vocabulary comprehension, and of course, motivation, which I just discussed. Phonemic awareness is the ability to hear, identify, and manipulate individual phonemes in spoken language. So we're not yet thinking about print or the alphabet. It matters because phonemic awareness is foundational for mapping sounds to letters and later decoding. So in an elementary school classroom, instruction in phonemic awareness might look like a sound switching game where students toss a ball and orally change sounds. Cat, throw the ball. Hat, right? We're changing the k to the h sound. Let's throw the ball again. Hat. Can you change it to a word that starts with the p sound? That's right, pat. So you want it to be like interactive and fun for the little ones, or you might play with rhyming riddles, like I'm thinking of a word that rhymes with log and starts with the D sound. That's right, dog. In a high school classroom, this is obviously going to look different, but high schoolers still do need instruction here sometimes. And so this might look like students clapping or snapping out complex academic words like photosynthesis. Let's say it together. Photosynthesis. How many syllables? Photosynthesis. Five. That's right. Let's break this word apart. In both developmental contexts, you want phonemic awareness instruction to be fast-paced oral sound work. Um, and that is going to build important foundational knowledge for decoding, which is when we use a systematic letter sound relationship to accurately read written words. So, decoding skills allow students to independently read unfamiliar words. And in an elementary school classroom, this might look like a word building game using magnetic letters or tiles where students build and read words that share patterns like ship or chin. Um, in that case, the word shares a short vowel sound, and not a pattern, but you get the gist. In a high school classroom, this might look like a word attack challenge where students work in teams to break apart and decode multisyllabic words from your content area, science or history texts. And in both developmental contexts, you probably will see students applying decoding strategies to crack words rather than guessing. We don't want to encourage guessing. Fluency is reading with accuracy, appropriate rate, prosody, and expression, and it supports comprehension by reducing cognitive effort. And in an elementary classroom, this might look like readers' theater, echo reading, choral reading. In a high school classroom, this might look like students performing a dramatic reading of a speech, a poem, a scene, focusing on tone and pacing. And in both developmental contexts, you will see, I hope, repeated reading that feels like performance, rehearsal, joyful, not a drill, right? There's a lot of fun activities we can do with fluency instruction. Vocabulary is knowledge of word meanings, including academic and morphological vocabulary. This is, of course, essential for comprehension. If we don't understand word meanings, we won't understand passages. So, in an elementary school classroom, vocabulary instruction might look like a word of the day charades game, where students act out words like predict or enormous. Text talk is a very effective strategy for vocabulary instruction in elementary school classrooms. And in a high school classroom, you might see good vocabulary work looking like students matching roots, prefixes, and suffixes to the meanings of longer, more complex multisyllabic words. Again, we will get into each one of those domains with some depth over the course of the semester, and I'm sure that as you read through the syllabi, you noticed that the course is actually organized around these reading domains. Finally, motivation, cross-cuts all of these domains. And we're thinking about a reader's interest, their engagement, and of course, their willingness to persist in the face of a challenge. Motivation supports practice, willingness to practice, stamina, and learning across all components. And so there are lots of ways we can boost motivation. In an elementary school classroom, this might look like making choices between two fun teacher-approved texts or using social strategies like partner reading. In a high school classroom, this also might look like choice among articles, maybe including podcasts with texts, excerpts tied to real world issues that students care about. The big picture here is that strong science of reading aligned instruction is systematic, it's explicit, and it's joyful. So, when phonemic awareness, decoding, fluency, vocabulary, and comprehension are taught intentionally and motivation is built in, students don't just learn to read better, they experience reading as meaningful, joyful, and empowering. So let's start thinking about where to begin in terms of reading instruction. Um, we typically will start with assessment because you don't want to teach someone to do something they already know how to do. And when we're thinking about assessment with struggling readers, we want to think about beginning with the foundation, right? Where does this begin? So let's talk about the alphabet because it's where the code begins. We typically want to start instruction and assessment with the alphabet because it's the foundation of the entire reading code. The alphabet is a finite, teachable set of symbols that students have to connect to sounds in order to read effectively. And if letter knowledge is weak or not automatic, decoding cannot develop reliably. So, beginning with the alphabet allows us to identify gaps early, understand decoding errors better, and we really want to prevent guessing with decoding instruction. We want the alphabet knowledge to be secure. So let's talk about your alphabet knowledge. I'm assuming you already have a pen and paper from the other reflection that you did before. Let's just self-assess how many letters are in the alphabet. Go ahead and write that down. I'm hoping you know this quickly, but if you don't, it's good you're taking the course. How many of these letters are consonants and how many are vowels? Go ahead and write that down. How many phonemes? Remember, a phoneme is a sound, not a letter. And I'll come back and answer these questions, but do allow yourself to do this self-assessment so that we can set some goals for our own learning this semester. Okay. What I would like you to do now is go ahead and pause the recording, and we're going to do some code awareness trivia. I want you to go ahead and look at this slide, and for each vowel, list four CVC words. And CVC is short for consonant, vowel, consonant. Great job. Now you'll pause, and for each vowel, list two CCVC. That stands for consonant, consonant, vowel, consonant, otherwise known as beginning blend words. Make each word start with a different blend. You can go ahead and pause and do that, and when you're ready, start the recording again. Great job. Now we're going to think about ending blends. For each vowel, list two CVCC words. Make each word end with a different blend. Go ahead and pause and do that, and then we'll move on to something a little more challenging. Great job. Now for each vowel, can you list two CCVCC beginning and ending blend words? Go ahead and pause and do that. Okay, so why did we do this code awareness activity? We did this activity to make something invisible visible. As experienced readers, we read automatically. We rarely stop to think about vowel sounds, blends, digraphs, syllables, irregularities in the code. And so this exercise forces us to slow down and examine the reading code consciously. And the activity reveals that English is highly structured but not simple. The code includes predictable patterns like CVC words, blends, and silent E, but also some inconsistencies. And many words we think are easy actually require advanced code knowledge. So if this was challenging for you, good, that's the point. If adults with strong literacy skills, that's you, have to think about the code while they're reading, imagine how hard it would be to comprehend, right? We want these skills to be automatic. And so this reinforces why explicit, systematic phonics instruction is essential. So it helps illustrate that reading is not intuitive. Students cannot just pick up the code by being exposed to print, and our job is to teach these patterns directly, sequence instruction carefully, and reduce cognitive load. And it reminds us that reading is taught, not caught, right? Clarity in instruction really, really matters. So why don't I go back and give you the answers so we know. There are 26 letters in the alphabet. The English alphabet has 5 vowels and 21 consonants. English has about 44 phonemes. I mentioned before a phoneme is a sound, not a letter. So there could be some slight variation depending on pronunciation, but it's about 44 phonemes. Some sounds use more than one letter, like if you think about sh as in shirt, ch as in cherry, or th as in they, right? So some sounds are not made with one letter. Some sounds are made with more than one letter. Reading is hard because English has more sounds than letters. Well, it's one of the reasons it's hard, right? So in terms of answers, you could probably use ChatGPT or the internet to support checking if your answers were accurate. But the point here is just to assess your own knowledge so that you can attend to what needs learning for you to teach phonics effectively. Okay. Um, And I also wanted to bring you to Recipe for Reading because the questions that I asked you follow the Recipe for Reading sequence chart. So when you go through the sequence chart, when you start doing Recipe for Reading, you'll notice that the progression in terms of difficulty follows the questions that I asked you. So you want to ask yourself, how did I do? Where did I break down? Where did I get some confused? Where did I get confused? And just jot some notes and set some goals for your phonics learning over the next few weeks. We're going to be talking about alphabetics, phonemic awareness, phonological awareness. You'll be reading about all these things. Really important to self-assess what you do know, what you don't know, and set some of your own goals for learning because the research tells us that will help you comprehend and learn even more effectively. Um, so you have instructions for our discussion board, which are posted on our online platform. Please read those carefully. In addition to your written post, I asked you to upload a short video. 1 minute is fine. I would just like to see your faces, have you introduce yourself, share something that you love, like a hobby, a person, a pet, interest, place, activity. It can be more than one thing. The goal is just for us to begin meeting one another as people, not just as names on a screen, while also grounding our discussion in course learning, of course. So I am really looking forward to getting to know each of you and reading your reflections. Make sure to always read those discussion board prompts carefully before responding. I'll see you all online. Thanks so much for attending our first session.